Welcome, everyone. This is Pineleaf News for Lotro Players News, where we take a look at the latest news in Lotro and here at Lotro Players. And please welcome this week, Andang,
Hey, everybody.
Carvette,
At your service and your families.
Arathert.
Good evening.
That sounds more like a Draculetta
Yeah, I was
line.
gonna say we got Drac on the show tonight, apparently.
Yay.
Terry Adwin
Hi, hi.
and Maven.
Hey, y'all.
And this week we'll head straight into the game news. And the big story this week is that the Russian Lotro servers are closing on May 1st.
That's right, Pineleaf. This is one of the big stories this week because there are actually multiple. But basically, the Russian servers are no longer going to be around. Their final 3 servers are being shut down, and there are no new accounts that are allowed to be made on the 22nd of April. And they have basically the servers are going to shut down on the 1st. Although Frelorn did say that there is going to be something, some kind of information for the Russian people, Russian folks, his words, next week. And so stay tuned on the forums for whatever that is. I'm guessing it's probably server ending events and not like the servers actually continuing like some of the people on the forums were hoping. But we'll see what happens. But basically, it was the end of their contract with whoever the company they were working with in Russia was. Their contract ended, so they were like, well, we're not going to support this anymore because our contract's over. So that's pretty much what happened. What do you guys think about this? Because it seems kind of sudden as far as like news on our end. Maybe they've had more news posts in the past, but it seems like all of a sudden the servers are just shutting down in Russia.
Well, it's not like they were exactly prompt in updates and the like.
No, but they were still
Yes.
getting updates.
Actually, they hadn't updated since 13 from what I was reading earlier. They haven't gotten
Right.
the last few.
But they
So,
had update 13 fairly recently because they've been behind. They didn't get Helm's Deep until a year later.
Gotcha.
So they've been
Okay.
behind about that much the entire time, basically. So,
Yeah.
Yeah, but it definitely, from what I was reading on the forums, it definitely felt like a lot of people were blindsided. Like, what? And just reading through the different forums, both on the American side and the Russian side, a lot of people are just kind of like, okay, now what do we do? What's going on? And a lot of different discussion. Well, one interesting thing they did is they opened up the Isengard Tavern on the live servers to let anybody who's still playing, crank themselves up to level cap, get all the gear they need to go run through whatever it is for one last huzzah. Thought that was interesting.
Oh, that's really cool.
yeah.
It's cool, but I definitely see that, for doing that, it doesn't seem to lean towards any kind of transfer capability whatsoever. It's just kind of like, here's one last huzzah.
Yeah,
The
we
end
know
is
that
nigh.
they cannot transfer, unfortunately, but they're basically
Yeah.
like, you can start a new character somewhere else.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it'd be cool if they offered like a free gift of the Valor to all those people
Yeah.
on a new server. That'd be neat.
Well,
Yeah, that's
we'll have
just a
to
lot of
well,
commentary on those.
there is
Yeah.
one thing that they're definitely not going to be getting, and that is a Russian client tier, because that would be too many resources to
Yeah.
implement a Russian client on the main servers.
And they would have already announced it by now, I'd imagine.
Yes, because that would have taken a great deal of time in order to implement that, because that's probably one of the reasons why they were so far back in getting their stuff, is how long it takes to translate everything into Russian.
Right, yeah, they'd been behind for literally years of just not getting the updates promptly. So it's not too surprising that they're shutting down, but at the same time, in the short term, it happened very suddenly. So hopefully we'll have more warning if this ever happens to us. But luckily they did say that they can come over here and create stuff, so, at least we're staying around for a while, it seems.
Yeah, one of the things that I saw repeated by several different folks was the idea that the billing system may or may not be able to communicate. So there's a lot of Russian players that are concerned over all of the money they've invested in the
Yeah.
expansions that they're going to have to rebuy.
I
So I
think
can understand that.
if that's the case, whatever
Rough.
the Monday announcement will be
Yeah.
some type of free something that they'll get, hopefully.
Yeah, that would be a good move on PR side.
All right, then. Then also, concerning updates, we have update 16 that will be released on May 4th. That is not this Monday, but a week from Monday. So a week from the release of this podcast.
That's right, Pineleaf. Lotro is bringing balance to the fourth. So, it can't all be about Star Wars. You got to get some Lord of the Rings in there to bring a little bit of balance. So, bringing balance to the fourth.
And there it was. The bomb has dropped.
So I feel like the
And
ultimate thing to do that day would be to watch all the Star Wars while playing Lotro.
while patching Lotro.
While
While
patching
patching
Lotro.
Lotro,
All right, very well. Are you think you'd be able to get through? What are you gonna do? Put it on super high speed or something?
We don't know how big update 16 is. It might take a while to patch.
You probably have some idea because you went to the beta server and had its patch there.
If
It
everyone
actually-
starts at midnight, they'll be done by noon.
Yeah,
it's
there's
gonna
no
depend
telling
on
how
the
long
speed
it's
of
gonna
people's
be.
connections,
Well, I
definitely.
meant watching Star Wars, but anyway.
Oh,
Yeah, that's true.
I think we're talking about two very different things.
And are you talking about a 6 movie marathon, or are you just
Oh,
talking
yeah.
about engaging the old school?
I don't know.
There were new movies.
It was a very,
Ouch. Ouch.
it's a very not well thought out plan.
I don't know what you're talking about. We haven't had new Star Wars movies for 30 years, guys. Come on.
Oh yeah.
Well, that'll change soon.
That's right.
Now
Anyway,
let's head into the developer video since the developers gave us a little sneak peek into update 16. And did you learn anything from that?
no.
I learned.
Nope.
I learned something.
That's because you made your own videos already.
I learned something that Freelearn actually pointed out on his stream the following Thursday, was that he looked like they were holding his family hostage at the end. And he said he's really learned he was very, very terrible in front of a camera in a small room with a couple people.
I did notice that as well, but again, no new information. So,
Nothing actually useful. Yeah, no.
Oh, nothing useful.
I mean, the thing is, even from just posts that they've made, there was no new information here. So, but that doesn't matter because we're finally getting another developer video. We haven't gotten one the whole last year, I don't think. Maybe update 13 had one.
It's been a while.
It is great to finally see these return because Lotro needs to be marketing itself to stay around, and the fact that they're willing to, take the time to even put a video of this production value together is pretty good. So I hope, they said that they're going to have more developer articles and stuff like that, so I'm glad to see all that kind of stuff return so that, it feels like that they're at least trying to promote the game still, which is great.
All right, very well. And that will go with update 16, where we will be able to go into Eastern Gondor.
Yeah,
Osgiliath.
that is the new place, finally. That's
Yeah, it's a new place. All right, let's get into our store sales.
Yes, the free sample of the week is plus 5% attack damage for 90 minutes. Use coupon code HYNM9 one time per account.
9.
Yeah, I don't know. We also have 30% off some crafting stuff. Ingredient packs, crafting guild access, which is free to VIP, craft experience boost, rapid crafting boost, complete crafting tiers, and recipe books.
I bet it's because when you hit something, you go, yeah! And then it's like that's the HY part, and then the NM9, that's like number 9. Yeah! Number 9 for 90 minutes.
Okay.
All right, then let's go into the site news then, where there was a poll on how much turbine points would you pay to unlock the Marius quests.
That's right, Pineleaf, and the top answer with 44% of the vote, 83 votes, is I wouldn't pay any TP, which is not surprising, considering that the quests aren't that, there's not that
Exciting?
much there, yeah. And a big thanks before I go on to Itocles for suggesting this poll. I think that it is a really good poll, and it saved me having to come up with a poll this week because it's getting really hard to. So feel free to tweet at me with poll ideas. But anyway, 19% of the audience said 500 TP. 14% of the audience said 200 TP. 14% with one less vote said 100 TP. 9% said 1,000 TP. And nobody said 2,000 plus, which is really not surprising.
Which is just no. You could almost have gotten the expansion for that much.
Yeah, basically.
The base edition, yeah. So, what do you guys think? Do you think that even though that this was an exclusive to expansion, it's been a while, it's been over a year now, do you think it'd be okay to
It's a lot
release
more than
this
a year.
at something, at some price? And what price do you think that should be?
Well, I actually already have them because I got the pre-order. But if they're going to do something like this, then they definitely have to do something about the cosmetic back item that's that Rohan shield because I want it.
Yeah, and the horse too.
I actually want the cosmetic Rohan shield more than I would want those horse session quests, which I did actually complete on one character. Got the horse-looking cloak and the title, destined for Rohan.
I think, see, I don't know if I would do it. Like if they offered it, even if it was free, I might like, oh, that's cool, and I might pick it up. But I don't know if I would actually do it. Like I've done enough session plays on chickens to last me a lifetime for
Well, I think that you're in a specific situation that the rest of
I'm
us
probably
aren't
not
really
the
in.
general Ultra population in that regards of, all right, I'm good with session plays as animals now. We can move along to something more human or humanoid.
Yeah, I think if I had 100 TP sitting in the bank, I'd probably spend it on this and go through it. I already have it through the expansion, but if I didn't, 100 TP would be decent, I think.
One character, because doing it on every one of your characters is
Yeah.
You speak
Yeah.
from experience,
Well,
finally.
well, let's just say that I believe I've only completed the deed on 2, maybe 3 characters.
That means a lot coming from Pine Leaf.
That does.
Yeah, it does.
All
All
right.
right then.
Although I would like
Let-
to be able to go in there and give those cargo and the troll shaws what for.
Oh, yes, there is that because. But then again, if you're level 100, you could do that pretty easily also.
Take
Yeah.
the Mayras, Cargul.
All right then, let's go into a little bit of fiction, and we'll begin with Laralini and the Fish by the Nimrodelian Tailspinner. And this week, the story is illustrated by Kaylee Starshine, which, as you know, she is noted for using pictures along with storytelling.
Yeah, and
So-
I've been talking with her the last couple weeks, and she has been spending a ton of time on this. This has been a huge project, and it shows from the quality of images she has and just the diverse amount of locations that she went to, because normally she kind of stays in one area, but here she went all over the place. So,
Now, there is one thing is that the site is compressing the images a bit. So some of them are a little, I think will be a lot easier to read if you click on them to bring them to their full size, because right now my browser is at least making them smaller than they're supposed to be.
yeah, I can still read them in my browser, but you can always open any images on Lotra Players to see their full size, assuming that they
Right.
were uploaded at a bigger size.
All right, then let's head into our video highlight for this week, Song. That sounds like a straightforward name. Any particular song?
Well, there was a special song made in part by the BBB, and this is basically the story going through a really sad story that turns into something kind of nice at the end. But it shows the power of song in Middle Earth in particular, I thought, and it was a really cool thing, I thought.
Mm-hmm.
All right, then. And we have another piece of fiction, and that is The Family Line, Part 41, Under Shadow of Night. And here we have a meeting with another pet apparently, or potential. We'll have to see.
It got
Later
interesting at
episodes.
the end. You get this mysterious new character going on.
Oh yes, who was that masked man? Maybe it was the Lone Ranger. So who would be the Lone Ranger in
That would be
in Lotro?
Aragorn.
Aragorn, would he?
He's a ranger and he was often alone.
I don't know. Candice is pretty good as a Lone Ranger.
Pretty much
too.
all the rangers are kind of lone rangers-y.
Yeah, they all are, aren't they?
Except for the ones in Estelden.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
they're like,
those
well, let's all
would
be the Lone Ranger together.
You're not a lone ranger.
Well, and Tinadir too, I guess.
Yeah.
This is true.
And Athelion
Yes.
pretty soon.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, Dillian.
Those are different Rangers, though.
They are, but they're still rangers, and they're still alone.
And they're still cool.
Indeed.
All right then. Let's head into our new player question this week. What's your question this week?
Well, I want to talk about booze this week.
Yeah.
Well, we've got the Springfest coming up, and I mean, Terry had to actually kind of teach me about this stuff, both in word and deed, in terms of alcohol. And I know during the festivals, both the In-League and the Ale Association are active, and I think new players may not really be aware of sort of what that means, and also the fact that what alcohol does to you in games. So, Terry, since our fun time that we had on Tuesday night was spent with much booze, why don't you start?
So, alcohol in Lotro, and it's actually funny because I fairly recently learned exactly what it does because I used to play the game on very, very low graphic settings. So I wasn't aware of some of the effects that you get when your character is completely smashed.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a lot of fun. So basically, if your character imbibes something alcoholic in the game, your screen will go blurry and your character will and then it will start to sway from side to side and your character will sort of mumble to themselves. And depending on the race and gender, it will mumble different things to themselves. But I think the female hobbit is probably my favorite. It's just hilarious. And then, of course, when festivals are up, you have the In-League and the Ale Association, which are two competing different groups of ale brewers, I guess, because the In-League is all about brewing ale, and the Ale Association kind of is too, but they're more about sabotaging it. So the In-League is run by a bunch of hobbits in the Shire, and the initiation quest starts at the party tree, where you have to drink 6 beers in under a minute, and then talk to the guy, who will then send you on a pub crawl through the Shire, and you have to drink 6 more beers at each different stop of the Shire.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, and by the time you
getting
get
progressively inebriated, I assume.
getting progressively more inebriated, exactly, and by the time you get to that final one, which is the Burden Baby and Mickle Delving, you are completely trashed. And I usually just walk away from the screen for 5 minutes until my character sobers back up.
Yeah, one of the things that you notice is there's, I think, 3, maybe 4 levels of inebriation.
Mhm.
And they've got really clever titles like "You Are Quite Merry," and "You've Muddled Your Wits," which is when it first starts to get really bad and your screen starts to sway. And then I think the ultimate level of, okay, dude, you're wasted is who, what, where? And that's usually the status where you've had a pub crawl event or you've drunk from one of the Sinister kegs and you wake up with no pants somewhere.
So yeah, Sinister Keg. I was going to ask about that. So Sinister Keg, that's going to come up, right, in the festival?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It
any of
talks
the
about-
kegs, actually.
Yeah,
Oh, any of
the
the kegs
Sinister, the
really?
Moria, there's several different flavors, and the idea is depending on what region or where you get the keg, you will wake up in some random location localized to that region, like the Moria keg will stuff you in Moria, and
Nice.
you'll wake up with no pants.
It used to be it would actually unequip your pants, but nowadays it doesn't unequip your pants, unfortunately. I know, right? They
Oh.
took that away. But
Oh,
it still has you seem to have lost your pants as
Yeah.
a little thing underneath
And
your character.
icon.
And I remember being told too that you could end up in some place that you're way under level 4, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
My first one was the Sinister Keg in Spring Festival, and I think I was level 20 or something, and I woke up in Ohio.
Oh jeez.
Yeah, and I didn't know
Oh.
where I was, and was having trouble reading the map to figure out how the heck to get out of there, or to find. And really, there is no safe way back out of there because you go north and you're further into Angmar, and you go south and you've got like a bunch of drakes on you.
Oh
So
jeez.
that's pretty much like an instant death sentence.
There's actually, I was in the In-League keg will send you there. The top of the giant spire in the Misty Mountains. There's no way to
Yes.
get off except for
Port out or
jumping
you can
and
die.
dying. There's no way to get off of it.
Yeah, there's a couple places you can only reach through kegs.
Through kegs. Oh,
I
my
personally have been
goodness.
transported to the shipwreck in Foracal on a level 20 character,
Oh,
which, you know, at
no!
the time was held by the enemy, so there's Garudan everywhere, and I'm so
Ew. Out of
wasted, I couldn't see
curiosity,
anything.
have you ever been to that place in Foracal when it wasn't held by the enemy?
Yes, I have.
Oh,
Really?
you must be luckier than I am.
It's tricky to do as a solo player unless you got a ton of DPS, because those jokers respawn quick.
Yeah.
I've done it with a duo to where I've flipped that keep, and I've actually gone in there once or twice where there was an actual player who'd gone through before me and flipped it. But yeah, that one's tough. That one's probably the toughest to flip solo.
But if you really want a crazy drunk experience, drink as much as you can, then go fight one of the blue wizards' Easterlings.
Oh my gosh.
Really?
Oh yeah,
Oh,
they have
great.
that mind like it's like a flashbang mind stun.
Like the sorcerers in Pellet.
Yeah,
Yep.
the something shouters. Those guys give you like this. Somebody just set off a flashbulb in your face, and if you have that layered on top of a drunk effect, you might as well just sit down.
So that's everybody's challenge for this week, is to kill as many of those as you can while being super, super drunk.
While being super inebriated.
It's interesting, actually. Certain drinks in Middle Earth will get you more drunk than others.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the thing. Is
There's
it-
only
Really?
a few. There's only a few that'll get you that dizzy screen look. There's some that you can drink them and drink them and drink them all day long, and they'll only give you that "you're quite merry"
yeah.
thing. But if you drink,
So I mean, what stuff like beer?
there's
I mean, certain
usually
kinds of
one.
beer and stuff?
There's usually one or two at each pub that'll do it. I know Forsaken Ale does it. I know Barlaman's Best does it. There's
Yeah.
a few others that will do it. At least one at every pub will get you hammered. You have
Yeah,
to
and
just
it's
discover
usually-
which stuff's the good stuff.
Yeah, it's usually the most expensive one on the menu.
Yeah.
That's
so
the way
if
I
you sort
usually
by
get it.
price.
Yeah.
Now, also
Like-
up in Forakel, isn't there a drink that also helps you ward off the cold?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Is it one of
Yeah.
the alcoholic
It's
drinks?
ice wine,
Okay. So that's
which
good
is
to
a little
know, too.
weird, but okay.
Good stuff.
I know that's kind of counterintuitive to me,
It's called
but
a
okay.
frosty.
Tip Barrel White is really bad. Yes, it is.
Well, cool. All right, so now new players, you are now up to speed on booze in Middle Earth.
And if you perchance happen to drink from a Moria keg and you end up in the secret inn above the 21st hall, take a screenshot because that's the
Oh,
only
yeah,
way you can get
definitely.
up to that.
Really?
The only way down is to port out or do a lemming drop straight into the vault.
Yeah, there's a few places you can only get. I didn't think to take a screenshot from the top of the spire, but I should have. Actually, randomly, someone in the chat reminded me of it that my girlfriend and I actually did a pub crawl for St. Patrick's Day.
Nice.
On stream. We went through all the pubs we could get to on our characters and then ran some instances. Totally hammered.
Fantastic.
It was great.
Isn't there a summer event involving drunken fence running?
That spring.
Oh, is that spring? Okay. That's the one out there in the green fields
Yes.
north of Brockenborn.
Brannick knows it very
No.
well. and he especially loves his favorite effect in the game is the effect you have when you drink the Bull Roarer's brew, which can only be gotten through the drunken fence walking.
What does that do?
I believe it has shamrocks as one of its effects.
Nice. That's awesome.
You got to remember, I probably know less about the alcohol system than any other player in the game. You know? So it's more of a Brannick specialty than mine.
Gotcha.
Sounds
Fantastic.
good.
So
Thanks, guys. Thanks for filling. I learned something from that. So pressing on,
All right.
finally.
let's go into our weekend Lotro, and we'll begin with Aerother.
So yeah, I had a really busy week in Loader actually. Started surprise, surprise with lunch. We had an incredible first place run from Vanyar. It was like military precision run. It was awesome. Like they had this little level 11 hunter or level 12 hunter that they also took to Helm's Deep, and they shield walled him. So it was him and a guardian running up in front, and they were pulling everything from the entire radar around, basically. And then they had a whole bunch of minstrels running along and ranged classes blowing stuff up. And then there was one guy behind my chicken making sure that nothing touched my chicken. It was absolutely perfect. It was really cool. 1 hour, 16 minutes, and 20 seconds, which was beat Brandywine by like just under 2 minutes. Mental Door, unfortunately, we toasted a chicken and a Regian. I got killed by a tree, but it was still fun. Mostly this week, I've actually been working on my Guardian. I've kind of been playing around. Chromite Swiftpot has convinced me to look back at mounted combat because I've always just run a heavy bridle and looked up and gone for high crit and stuff in Riddermark. And he's like, no, check this out. With a light bridle, you can do this, this, this. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go all in. So I've been building up a full light bridle and I'm working on a full heavy bridle so I can actually test both and give them both their full credit and see which one I like better for real instead of just going with one. So that's what I've been doing and also getting ready for the update and legendary items and all that stuff. And then today I got lost in Karn Doom for the first time. Really bad.
It's not hard.
Right.
It's a maze.
It really
Yeah.
is.
When you say you got lost for the first time, does that mean the first time you were there and you
I've-
got lost, or it was every other time you've gone in there before you didn't get lost?
No, I'd never been in Karn Doom before until today.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow.
I know. It's pretty
It's
much
not hard
sad.
to get lost then.
No,
yeah.
I mean I did Urgarth and Karn Doom. I'm doing Angmar deeds right now, getting my virtues up. But yeah, it was kind of a disaster. We took probably an hour and a half trying to find our way around there.
That's not
Alright, then.
unsurprising. The whole instance takes about 3 when you do it on level.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Corvette.
Yes. This week we raided the Rift again. This time it was a little bit more on level crew. And we had several players with perpetually muddled wits, and yet we managed to make it to the Balrog with only one might, because because we were kind of careless with Zerm. But then it was one of those things where we took a step, figured out how to kill the Balrog, and said, okay, we're not going to do that again. And then we just kept kind of chunking through it. And I think right around 12:30, after my computer crashed because it's not used to raiding, we were like, all right, just one more. And then we wiped horribly because we were all tired and dead. And just
Yeah,
like, okay,
we hit the
we'll try.
diminishing
And it bugged out
returns.
again.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
that's right.
interesting. The elf who's supposed to do certain things didn't a couple times, so you had to like get creative to get across the instant death, which kind of breaks the instance. So it was tricky, but I mean it's a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to actually beating that Balrog at some point in the not too distant future.
When we finally do succeed, the victory will be all the sweeter for having gone through the experience on Tuesday.
There you go. There you go. And then this doesn't happen very often, but I woke up on Wednesday and I had a parody that kind of came up as a result of some of the things that we were doing on Tuesday night. So
Speaking of being drunk,
yes, I was thinking it's the lag. It must have been the lack of sleep or something. But I had the tune of "Do You Want to Build a Snowman" in my head, so I wrote, "Do you want to kill a Balrog?" And we have a guest musician who's going to sing it because y'all don't want me to do it.
Okay. Do you want to kill a Balrog? Come on, let's go and raid. I never shield you anymore. Zone out the door, it's like you've gone AFK. We used to be lead raiders, and now we're not. Our leg spike's the reason why. Do you want to kill a Balrog? It doesn't have to be Thorlock. Go away, Carvet. Okay, bye. Do you want to kill a Balrog? Or charge our steeds through the halls? I think a fellowship is overdue. I've started plugging two with anyone in world. Looking for group. It gets a little lonely. All these empty slots. Just watching the dots tick by. Dot tick, dot tick, dot tick, dot tick. That's all I got.
Yay! That was awesome.
You'll be
Yeah,
able to
so-
buy that on iTunes.
I don't know about that, but it just kind of worked out, and I was like, "Yeah, this is fun. I like it." So that happened, and then on Thursday I ran Moria with the Misses, which is I think what I'm kind of calling it right now. We completed Volume 2, Book 2, and I learned that Mrs. Carve have not earned the Fellowship. Let me try that again. Mrs. Carve has not earned /follow leadership rights. Wide corners must be taken in Moria. Wide corners, because if you take a corner too sharp, the following individual cuts it sharp and finds misadventure.
Hey, Carve, I wrote an article on following mechanics.
Oh, fantastic.
It's on the Lotra Player site.
See if I can get her to read it. I'll probably
Yeah, that's going to be the tricky part.
Yeah.
read this. What? So,
To be fair to Mrs. Carve, the same thing happened to you in the Rift. You were following somebody and became separated. I do recall because I was behind you.
yeah, I ended up smashed
You
into
were
a rock
running
wall.
into a wall.
Yeah, that happened too. So, Maven,
Yes.
how was your week?
My week. Well, I keep grinding anniversary tokens so that I can get the maps that are on sale, so I can do Moria and Eriador. But I keep getting distracted, and so I end up spending my coins on things like a hat, a cake hat, and a U in a box. I mean, how can you
Those are
resist that,
dyeable. Don't
right?
forget
That's
to dye
right.
those.
They're dyeable. So my cake hat is going to go with every outfit. And then Glordrel got kindred level with all 3 elf factions. So I'm now ambassador to the elves, and I got a horse as a result. And then Raid Part 2, which Carve's already talked about, which was great fun and very instructive. And I accompanied Wigand through the final instance of Volume 1. Everybody cheers! Yay!
Yay!
We just got through the whole entire Volume 1 quest. This is, by the way, Corey Olson, the Tolkien professor, and we're all thrilled. And he also tested out Twitch, and just will be announcing this later in a later show. But he's getting set up with Freelorn to join the stream team, and will probably start streaming on the Lotra stream mid-May. He's going to roll a new character and go through all the epic stuff with that character, and then interesting side quests that have to do with the story. So it should be really interesting. It's oriented toward players who are interested in lore, and also non-Lotra players as well. So we're going to be, really marketing it hard through Mythgard and Signum to have people come join us. So hopefully we'll get some new Lotra players as a result.
Be awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So Terry, what did you do?
Well, not a whole lot, actually. Did the Rift. That's my burglar in the level 50 group. And actually, it was my idea to run it completely trashed because it was part 2. And I was like, you know what? I really don't want to do this with a sober character. So I stopped by the Golden Perch, best beer in the Shire. And I stocked up on some old Withywindle. And not only was it me, but I passed it around to the raid. So it wasn't just me, it was everybody, because when Andang joined us, I traded him like half a stack, and he didn't even realize what it did. He was like, oh, I shouldn't have done that.
Well, I forgot because it'd been so long since I've drunk anything in the game, and I'm like, oh, probably shouldn't have done
that
that.
was my highlight of the week right there. That was pretty funny.
Everyone's AA meeting afterwards was like, so this thing happened?
I didn't walk
Yeah.
straight for a week.
Yeah.
And I'm the one who doesn't like crafting. I did some crafting this week. It's actually also on my burglar because she was making homemade ale. Take with her the next time we run the Rift.
So basically, what did you do this week? Drink a
272
lot.
blackberry ales in her inventory right now.
All
When I
right,
do
then.
crafting, I do lots of crafting.
Wow, partay, really.
Yeah.
Bring that Mythgard Monday so we can do the Fort of Brunnen with Pine Leaf drunk.
Oh yes.
I'm sure Pine Leaf would appreciate that.
Oh, good grief.
Somebody go over there and buy the stuff and stuff. They're making things hard.
You have enough trouble keeping those 2 alive when you're sober.
And after that day, Pineleaf gave up skirmishes for good, and never again did he.
Running around about
All right, very well.
well.
All right, very well. Let's go to what I did last week. On Gladden, my Bjorning there completed Volume 1 of the Epic Storyline, which means also finishing that final instance of Volume 1, which was quite a thrill to do. It's interesting because the first pull was the only one where our friend that we're accompanying almost got killed. Every other time, I managed to keep her alive all the way through. But during that first pull, wasn't quite into it yet, or something like that, and like a sliver from being killed and having to start all over again. But I finished it and finished Volume 1 on that character, and I also finished the intro for Moria. So I finished the intro to Moria before I finished Volume 1, so I did have an legendary item with me for the Volume 1 conclusion.
Scandalous, finally. Scandalous.
I was doing my stuff by level, and the final instance is level 52, and the intro to the legendary items is level 50.
Okay, I just know that you used to be one of the guys that would not do that before, so I'm,
No,
I'm
that's
surprised.
not actually. I only did that with one character. We had that
Okay.
very strict rule.
Yeah, I remembered on Adventures you talking about that, or maybe that was Fellowship of the Creeps back in the day. But anyway.
Right? Yeah. That was my Laurelin Warden who did that particular trick of making sure I did the whole thing in strict order. Now my Bjorning on Wonfola, I ran the Pelargir epic battle in a duo because I have a lot of trouble with that one when I'm trying to solo it. And so I paired up with someone else who was having a lot of trouble soloing it, and we got through it. And then after that, when the third member of our group arrived, we decided to run Battle of the 21st Hall at Tier 3. It's the first time our group ever did that skirmish at Tier 3 because it gets tough at Tier 3. And in fact, when we were doing it, it came to a situation where we got to the boss fight. I believe I had to remove that corruption the boss gets 8 times. I don't remember ever having to remove that corruption twice on him during a boss fight. This time I had to remove that corruption 8 times during the course of the battle. That's how long the battle took.
Wow.
And I think we had about 3 or 4 waves of ads come in through the course of it. And I never remember getting even a second wave before in doing that. So it was a very long, drawn-out battle. And I participated in a performance at a horse show today where we were performing at the Hobnaggins Field and having some horse demonstrations, a dressage. We had there a few races, and also some discussion about war steeds in general and the history of them and things like that. And I must conclude that that was the best use they ever had of the Hobnaggins Field.
Nice.
So let us head into our news beyond Lotro. But there isn't any. So we'll head straight into the skirmish then. What are the pros and cons of Fangorn? And we'll begin with the books. Arather, you say that you're pro Fangorn.
Yeah. Okay. I think part of the reason and what I think of when I think Fangorn is partially Fangorn is Treebeard. Like Treebeard it's Fangorn is Treebeard's name. It's like the same thing. And Fangorn Forest is literally Treebeard Forest. It's sort of not an extension of him, but it is very much his forest. And kind of when I think Fangorn, I don't really picture the movies or the books. I picture, or excuse me, not the movies or the games. I kind of picture the book and what it is. I think the description that Pippin tries to give of Fangorn, of Treebeard himself, is the perfect description of like of Fangorn, the forest itself, and I kind of wanted to read it, if that's okay.
How long of a passage is it?
It's like two Tolkien sentences,
Go for it,
Oh,
Ed.
that's
which is
fine.
yeah,
Don't consider-
they're long sentences. It's like Saint Paul. He doesn't know how to use commas correctly. Um, One felt talking about Pippin's trying to remember Treebeard's eyes and what his eyes are like. One felt as if there was an enormous well behind them, filled up with ages of memory and long, slow, steady thinking. But their surface was sparkling with the present, like sun shimmering on the outer leaves of a vast tree or on the ripples of a very deep lake. I don't know, but it felt as if something that grew in the ground, asleep you might say, or just feeling itself as something between root tip and leaf tip, between deep earth and sky, had suddenly waked up and was considering you with the same slow care that it had given to its own inside affairs for endless years. And it's like that couple sentences, like the depth and I guess self consideration and just like the whole smooth waters run deep thing, that is like to me what Fangorn is. And I think that comes across well in the books.
All right,
And that's why I
very
like
well. Terry Hadwin, do you have any cons for this?
I signed up for the cons, but I don't actually have any cons because I couldn't really think of anything in the books that I disliked about Fangorn because I thought it was a really well done part of the books. I really enjoyed reading it. So there you go.
All right then. Anyone wish to provide a con then for the books? All right, let's go to the films then. Carvette, what are the pros?
Well, one of the things I liked about the films is they did a really good job, at least for the snippets of Fangorn that we get to see, of giving you this impression of an old, dark, not necessarily creepy per se, but definitely a very old forest that had that kind of stale air that they were talking about. But it didn't feel as creepy as Mirkwood did. One of the things I've always appreciated, like when they went and did the set design, they had some trees that were crafted, but the majority of the trees were brought in
Yeah.
from fields and from various places on New Zealand, even to the point where, where occasionally they would have creatures come out under the hot lights, and especially the Weta, which is basically a giant cricket, and it would freak Peter Jackson out. But the idea that they would bring in these live trees and set them up with all the actors to give the forest that kind of depth that, this is something that, I mean, for all we know, Treebeard and the Forest of Fangorn, that is basically, there's some kind of I don't know if I want to go far as to say symbiotic, but it's definitely a very close relationship there, is as old as before elf and man ever walked on Earth. There's a passage later on when Gandalf was talking about them after they've gone and the Battle of Helm's Deep has happened, where they're like, what are these? And Gandalf is referring to, they may be even older than before ever elf song was heard or a hammer was struck. So we were talking last week about how old Galadriel was. Well, Treebeard predates Galadriel. And I liked how the movie showed this old forest.
Mhm.
Mhm.
All right. Trish, do you have any cons?
Well, sort of a couple things. One is my jury. I had how many times have I seen the movie, and my jury is still out on whether or not I like having Old Man Willow transplanted from the old forest into Fangorn.
Only in the
You know,
extended edition, by the way.
well, whatever. That's the only movie I watch. But the thing is, on the one hand, at least he's there, I suppose. And it does give us kind of a dramatic, interlude there. The other is just, I think, the limitation of the film. I mean, given what Ents are, and there's just not enough footage to do justice to how slow the Ents, operate. Whereas in the book that could happen. I think the other just is also the motivation of Treebeard, is different in the movie than in the book, and I actually prefer the book in that sense. So, but other than that, I mean, it's like it was my first, vision of Fangorn, until I got to the game, and so I mean, I'm not like super con. But those were, there were no pros left when I went to sign up, so I had to.
Yeah, I kind of
Well, I agree with you, Trish. Go ahead.
I do
Andy.
too. I fast forward through a lot of the Fangorn scenes anymore,
Yeah.
just because I can't handle the way they did Treebeard, particularly when
Yeah.
he's like going downhill feels like I'm going, or going south feels like I'm going downhill, or whatever that dumb comment was. Surely Ents know if they're going downhill or not. Like that's whatever.
All right. Well, what are your pros for the games?
Well, for the games, my pros are a few things. First of all, Lotro's had a lot of forests that they've done over time. The Old Forest was possibly their worst implementation, just because they didn't know what they were doing back then, and that's actually how most MMO forests were designed back in that time. So it's not too abnormal, but it probably needs to be revamped sometime yesterday. And then you get to Lothlorien, and it's kind of how it's supposed to be, so that's kind of cool. And then you get to Mirkwood, and Mirkwood is supposed to be not as dense as Fangorn, but it's supposed to be a lot more dense than what Lotro portrays, so I feel like that they didn't do the best job with that. But when they get to Fangorn, it's like all of a sudden they know exactly what they're doing, and it feels like a real forest. And I love the way that it's done, and it's totally open, and yet it feels very condensed and hard to navigate. So you can go pretty much everywhere, but you feel like it's this really tight old forest, and they got a lot of visual diversity in there that makes it look interesting and keep the zone fresh, and I just really, really love the way Fangorn was done. Obviously, you can't really go mounted in there very long if you want to survive, or have your horse not have a concussion. But I think that they did a really good job with Fangorn.
Actually, concerning Mirkwood, I have a feeling that the reason why it's not as dense in Lotro is because the part of Mirkwood they do is the part near Dol Guldur, and I suspect that the orcs were chopping down most of the trees in order to.
Yeah, but there
do
wasn't
various
much
things.
evidence of that happening, though.
Well,
my only
yeah,
thing.
you do have a point with that because, well, if it's been happening over centuries.
True, but I mean, they must have uprooted and replaced the soil very carefully. Those
All
orc
right,
gardeners.
you do have. All right, you do have a point with that. It's certainly not as that if they ever do Northern Mirkwood, it better be a very dense
Yeah,
forest.
definitely.
Right. Now I'll go into the cons, and biggest con that comes to my mind is when
Yeah, the ant voices are pretty bad.
When Treebeard says this in the epic story during Andane's epic story, Andane's going, "Oh, Turbine."
Yeah, that's true. I kind of separated him from the forest, but that's true.
Well,
That's definitely a con.
It's because Arether was talking about
Yep,
Fangorn being
definitely.
the force and stuff. It was the reason why I was thinking about. So the main thing I was thinking, of course, is now you could call this a pro or you could call this from a point of view of representing a forest, you might call it a pro. But from the point of view of trying to play within it, it's a con. And that is, of course, getting lost.
Really? I don't
See, I think
get
that's a
that
pro.
lost that much.
And even if I do, like, it's a pro in Fangorn because you're kind of supposed to.
Yeah,
It's like Moria.
yeah, that's why I said it depends on the.
I get really
So it depends on
frustrated.
your point of view. If you're in a hurry trying to finish a quest, it's a con. If you are trying to get the feeling of a forest, then it's a pro.
Yeah, at least in the first part of Fangorn, there aren't that many quests in there. I mean, there's a bit. It's probably 30
Yeah, there's
or less, but
Well, there are 3 sections of Fangorn that we go through.
right, in that first section, there's like around 30, but the other 2, there aren't as many quests as the other.
Yes, but
Yeah,
I
I'm-
mean,
I'm
just the
actually-
one in Wildermore is.
Well, yes,
Glordale's
that
actually in
forest
Fangorn
is
now.
not the best one.
Glordale's actually in the Fangorn version after post Helm's Deep, where she's got a Huorn going around with her to clean things up, and it's pretty interesting actually. That's a
Yeah,
little bit
but
more
I've
open.
only-
It's harder to get lost in that. So
Yeah, but I've only done that once. I never exactly. So that grind isn't exactly the most. exciting thing.
Yeah, I'm just doing it because I haven't done
Yeah.
it before, so it's kind of interesting.
Right, yeah, doing it the first time is fine, but it's the
Yeah.
fact that you go through all this and then you open the box and nothing.
Oh,
Just,
bummer.
Yeah.
Oh, bummer. Well,
all right.
yeah.
Anyone else
So,
have any, yeah, anyone else have anything they wish to add?
I would just say that like the fact that you get lost in Fangorn is one of the things that I like about it. Same
Yeah.
with like there's certain things that I feel like you should get lost in, and certain places you shouldn't. Like Fangorn, yeah, that's great that you get lost in Fangorn. It's great that you get lost in Moria. Like that's good because it fits. It's supposed to be a confusing place. It's supposed to be a place that's been built or grown over the centuries with no rhyme or reason and city planner behind it. You know,
Yeah. I think
places
that
places
yeah,
like
that's a
Karn
good
Doom,
point.
places like Karn Doom, that's not supposed to be confusing.
I think
Even
Fountain
orcs
Doom's
got to
supposed
find
be
their way around.
very, very confusing.
I think
It's like-
Fangorn is much easier to navigate than Moria, and so I think Fangorn has just the amount of confusingness that you need where it's basically all on one level. Sometimes you might get to like the edge of a cliff and have to figure your way around, but that doesn't happen that often. So for the most part, you pretty much know the general area of where you need to go because it's all a fairly flat map.
Yeah, but when you run into a war band over the only route you could find into the
Oh.
forest to your quest
No
giver.
kidding.
Stay off the
That's
roads,
because the
Pine
warbands
Leaf.
stalk you.
Stay off the roads.
Yeah, and that warband is the one that actually pursued me into the res circle and killed me again. I was really
Yes.
annoyed.
Oh, and Bellwood.
Yeah, in the Bellwood, yes.
I
All
love
right,
the Bellwood.
let's head into the donations. We currently have 6 supporters on Patreon. If you would like to join this illustriously fellowship of players and help support Lotro players, simply go to the donations page where you can support the Players Alliance on Patreon. There you will find rewards, including a mention on the podcast of your choice, or even be a guest on an episode of Lotro Players News. And how far are we from the next goal?
We're still about $1 from our next DDO giveaway and $26 away from our next Locher Players 5,000 Turbine Point code giveaway. So that would be awesome to do. So hopefully we'll get some more support and get that done.
All right, then. We did not receive any iTunes reviews, but we would love to hear from you. But we do have an email. Stuart wrote, Hi, Lotro Players News. As always, it is great to continue to the weekly podcast. Feels like the podcast has a new energy about it. Great interaction, you stalwarts, and new presenters. I have a question for you. How do you keep your interest and participation in the game? After update 15, the grind has caught up with me and I have not been in game for 2 to 3 months. I wonder whether you could share your experiences and if it applies, how you get yourself back into the game. Regards, Stuart.
I can answer that one, even though I've not been playing as long as a lot of folks. I've been playing about 3 years, actually a little over 3 years now, closer to 3.5. And when I get tired of something in the game, like the first thing I got tired of was Moria. And I was like, I'm done with this place. But I had no other options. Like that was the only route forward for me at the time. So I just did something different. Like I went and did my Shire deeds, got out in the sun a little bit, got less pale. But I'm in this situation where I don't have as much playtime and there's a lot of things I haven't done in the game. So, I mean, I don't know if it's possible to do everything in the game on a character, but the fact, like, my thing is, like, there's always something different that I could be doing if I don't like what I am doing. And there's so many different things in the game to do in my mind that, like, I can always find something to do. Or all else fails, I just go creepside because I have yet to have that get boring.
Exactly, and that's usually my first piece of advice to people is just try something different that you don't normally do, and that'll keep you interested. You know, if you are normally doing raiding and stuff like that, try out a different part of the game. And you know, if you've tried that stuff already, go with your friends and try that particular thing out. And your
Well-
situation will probably be different.
People
Um,
like to level new characters, but if you're just blowing through the quests, like picking them up, turning them in, which I tend to do, without actually reading them, you're missing a lot of the game. And like I feel like a lot of
Guilty.
what makes it interesting. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
Yeah.
really
guilty as
true.
well. But
um,
it's like that doing that alone would completely be something new and interesting that I haven't done.
he says that he's not been in the game for 2 to 3 months. Not necessarily a bad thing. There hasn't been new content for over 6 months now, right? So, that's not necessarily a bad thing because there just hasn't been anything new. And in particular, if you have, already gone through the game a couple times, I can definitely understand that. And so I think it's important to take a break from the game from time to time. I know a lot of people, including Sithrith and some others, that have taken over year-long breaks from the game and been really glad that they did because when they came back, they were refreshed and there was a ton of new content waiting for them to get through. Um, so I think that there's always something else to do, but at the end of the day, it doesn't necessarily have to be Lotro. You don't want to burn yourself out trying to find other things to do if you've already kind of done that. And just come back when new content comes, like the new raids that
that's
are
a really
coming
good
out
point.
and the new update. One thing I
You
wish
mean
Lotro
new
would
instances,
new instances, yeah.
not
Yeah.
raids. Yes.
One thing I wish was because I was looking at the word raid when I said that. Anyway, one thing that I wish that they would do is spread out the content a lot more. Really, like some of the past updates, they've released like 3 or 4 subzones at once. You can just release one at a time, and then you'd have like 7 or 8 updates a year instead of just 2 or 3. And that would keep people coming back to the game and staying interested because there'd always be something new. So, I don't know. That's kind of my advice.
All right
And
then.
I feel like doing things with someone is a
Yeah.
big part of it too. Like if you're just doing this by yourself, every time you're playing, it's by yourself. It's gonna get really old really fast.
hmm
If you can find someone to do stuff with, it's a lot of fun.
Yep.
All right.
That's
then.
right.
There's always something new to do. I still haven't done everything. That's why I have so many alts.
All right. We have a second letter. This next one is from Barnabas, who has sent us his 8th origin story,
Oh my.
A Moor's Tale.
Oh, this is good.
Deep in the shadows of the Entmoors, there lived a fierce warg named Erithert. He was cunning, strong, and his enemies feared him. But it was not his power alone that the free folk feared. After every victory, he would lift his leg and perform the dreaded steam stream on his defeated foe. One day, he was stalking his prey, which was becoming increasingly scarce. He spied a champion and became disheartened. Those champs always hurt my teeth, he thought, and they always running away before you can finish them. Like Erithert was lost in time, and he remembered his youth as a pup in the dens of Isengard. A chicken! He shouted. Those things tasted great, not like those foul champs.
Ba-dum-psh.
I haven't seen a chicken in ages, and it's almost lunch time.
Ba-dum-psh.
His wicked mind quickly devised a terrible plan. He gathered up his creepy friends and approached GV. First, we are going to need a distraction, barked the warg. How are we going to make that happen? Asked Pine Venom. Like this, roared the taskmaster as he picked up the spider in his maw and hurled him towards the one-shotters. Oh, wonderful. As the weaver sailed through the air, he was filled with so many arrows that when he fell to the ground, he looked like an 8-legged hedgehog.
Really ugly hedgehog.
Thanks a lot. Now my chance, Eric stilted and dodged past the one-shooters into GV and burst out the back door. Now Aerother travels all the worlds of Middle Earth searching for the delicious chickens. But he is very sporting warg. He will tell you where he's going every week.
Thank you so much, Barnabas. That was
That is
awesome.
awesome.
Another origin story. That is
have
crazy.
I have only two things to say on it. Well, three things. Number one, it's awesome. Number two, my warg's name is actually Lucky Luck.
Yeah, but it's not about your work. It's about you.
Exactly. It's about you,
And
Aerother.
number three,
That's the point of the origin
to
stories.
I forgot to say, next week is on Guaya here in Silverload, because I do tell you where I'm going every week. Next week's lunch runs is on Guaya here in Silverload. Guaya here? I don't know. But that was awesome. Thank you so much, Barnabas.
All right, so Gwai here, the Windlord.
Yep.
All right. All right, you could contact us by emailing us at podcast@lotoplayers.com. You could also follow us on Twitter. You go to the Players Alliance at Players Ally, Loto Players at Loto Players, Andang at PVMP_Andang, Aerithert at Aerithert, Braxwolf at Braxwolf, Carvet at Carvet LP, Lily Kate at Lily Kate Buggins, Maven at Mind Shared Maven, Pineleaf at Pineleaf Needles, and Terry Adwin at Terry Adwin. The Players Alliance has 3 live shows every week. On Mondays at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have DDO Players News. On Thursdays at 6:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have Guild Wars Players News. And on Saturdays at 8:30 p.m. U.S. Eastern Time, we have Loto Players News. And you can join us for our live shows at lotoplayers.com/live. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This is Pineleaf Needles reminding you to skirmish responsibly.